Are you thinking about buying a house? Well, then stick around because today I'm talking all about the home buying process, where to begin, what the process looks like, and how to eliminate as much stress as possible from your transaction. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Nathan Barnes with the Barnes Home Sales team at Keller Williams Realty Bothell, and today we're talking all about the home buying process, with a special emphasis on first-time home buyers. I'm going to talk about what the process looks like, where you should start, the research you should do before you even contemplate buying a house, and also talk about some of the common mistakes that buyers make so that we can try to eliminate as much stress as possible from your transaction. So the first step in purchasing a home is doing some research and figuring out how you're going to pay for that down payment. A lot of people put off purchasing a home because they think they can't afford the down payment. They have heard from their friends that you need 20% down to buy a home. Well, I'll tell you, that's simply not the case. There are loan programs out there that can get you a home for as low as 3.5% for a down payment. There's also a lot of ways to get assistance with your down payment. Here in Washington State, first-time homebuyers have access to the Washington State Housing Authority's Down Payment Assistance Program. Also, many people don't realize that if they have an IRA, they can withdraw up to $10,000 towards the purchase of a home as a first-time homebuyer without having to pay the 10% early withdrawal fee. I definitely recommend sitting down with your financial advisor and coming up with a good game plan. And sit down and write a budget and figure out what you're going to need to do in order to save up to pay for that down payment. Another step is knowing what your credit score is and knowing whether or not you can purchase a home with that credit score. A lot of people think that if they don't have a 780 or 800 or above credit score, they can't purchase a home. Well, that actually simply isn't the case. And in fact, if it was, it'd be very difficult for a lot of people to purchase homes because only 20% of the US population has a credit score of 800 or higher, and only 25% has a credit score of, I believe it's about 760 or 740 or higher. However, if you look at this chart here, you'll see that the average credit score on closed FHA loans as of 2018 was only 676. And you can see over the last 7 years, the average credit score for closed FHA loans have decreased considerably from 702 all the way down to 676. During the same time, the average credit score in the US has increased from 690 back in April 2012 all the way up to 704 in April 2018. So you may be surprised at your ability to purchase a home without having to do anything to your credit score. Now, all that being said, if your credit score does need a little work, there are many websites out there that can give you tips and advice on how to improve your credit score. Okay, so you've done your research, you've figured out how you're going to pay for your down payment, you've taken care of any credit issues you have. Now it's time to hire a knowledgeable and qualified realtor. They're going to sit down with you and do a needs analysis, really dig deep and find out what is driving your need to purchase a home and what you need in that home, where you need to live, why you need to live there. Also, especially for a first-time homebuyer who's never navigated the home buying process, your realtor does this day in and day out. They know all the potential pitfalls that can happen along the home buying process, and they can help to alleviate a lot of stress for you. So once you've met with your realtor and you've come up with a game plan, the next step is to get pre-approved. This is a very important step. It's going to set you apart from the buyers that aren't pre-approved, and especially in markets like we have right now where things are very competitive and you're getting multiple offer situations on almost every home. You want everything you can do to make your offer the most attractive to a seller. Getting pre-approved is a big part of that. I always recommend to my clients that they meet with at least 3 lenders. Now, listen, there's a lot of great lenders out there, but they all have slightly different programs that they offer and different metrics that they use to qualify their buyers. So you're going to want to find the lender that's the best for you. So meet with at least 3 of them, figure out exactly what you can afford, then it's time to start the actual fun part, which is the house hunting. You're going to meet with your realtor and figure out exactly what your search criteria are, and then he's going to narrow these down to a handful of homes that really fit what you're looking for. You'll go out, you'll tour the homes, inevitably find the one that you fall in love with, and then you can put an offer in on that house. When it's time to put in your offer, there are many variables that go into it. It's not just price. especially nowadays in this highly competitive market where we're seeing multiple offers on almost every listing. A good realtor is going to do everything they can to find out what that seller's motivation is. Do they need a quick close because they're moving out of town and they just have to go? Do they want the most money possible? Do they only want cash buyers? Are they looking for as little contingencies as possible throughout the transaction? I mean, I'm seeing it all right now. You see people waiving their inspections, which, by the way, I never recommend you waive your inspection. But you also see people waiving all sorts of other contingencies or doing a pre-inspection ahead of time, which is a gamble because you have to pay for that inspector and you might not end up purchasing the home. But this is why it's important to have a qualified realtor that can give you the best guidance on how to structure your offer for each specific home to make it as competitive as possible. All right, so you've submitted your offer and you've got it accepted. Yay, you're buying a home, right? Well, not quite so fast. You are buying a home, but there's still a lot of steps along the way before you get to closing day. The biggest step that comes after your offer is accepted is the inspection. Now, I recommend to every single client that I work with, get a home inspection. You need to know what you're purchasing. And then once you've got that inspector out there, you're going to get this long inspection list that can be very daunting and intimidating at first. You're going to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much wrong with this home. Well, every home, if it's especially older homes, are going to have issues. What you want to do with that inspection report is break it down into two simple categories: deal breakers and non-deal breakers. If it's a deal breaker, these are the kind of things you want to negotiate with the seller prior to moving forward in the transaction. For instance, let's say the electrical system in the house is bad. So you don't want to move into a house that's a potential fire hazard, right? You're going to negotiate to see if you can get that seller to hire a qualified electrician to bring all the electrical up to code. At the same time, if it's something as simple as, oh, there's a little bit of dry rot on the fascia board on the side of the house, well, that can just go on your project list for things that you're going to have to do after you move in. So don't be too intimidated by the inspection report. Inspectors get paid to find everything possible and give you as much information about the home that you're about to purchase. Then it's up to you as the buyer to decide whether or not you want to purchase that home and whether you want to negotiate. So once you've gotten past the inspection, you've negotiated any repairs that need to be done, the next major step, if you're financing a home, is the appraisal. No lender is going to lend you money without first having a qualified appraiser come out and look at the property. Now, ideally, the appraisal is going to come in at value and everything's going to be good. However, again, in this really competitive market we have, where we see prices getting escalated up and up and up, that appraisal might not come in at value. If it doesn't, this becomes another point for negotiation in the transaction. So as a buyer, or excuse me, as a realtor representing a buyer, my recommendation would be you let the seller know that there's been a low appraisal, and the seller gets to decide what options they want to do. Now that doesn't mean you can't make suggestions, but you want to let the seller decide, because they might come back and just say, oh, we'll drop the price down to the appraisal, and there you go, you don't have to do any negotiating. If not, there are a lot of other options. I could do a whole video on what to do if your appraisal comes in low. But again, this is why you hire a qualified realtor who's been through this many times and can walk you through the whole process. So once everything's done with the appraisal, and hopefully you don't have to do negotiating, but either way, once you're past that appraisal phase, your entire deal goes to the underwriter. Now they're going to take a fine-tooth comb and look at everything. And I should stop here and remind you of how important it is when you're purchasing a home to not make the number one mistake that prospective buyers make. Please, don't make any large purchases while you're trying to buy a home. Don't go out and finance a new car. Don't go spend thousands of dollars on a big giant big screen TV, because depending on what the metric is and how close it is to you getting approved or not getting approved, the underwriter may see this and it could tank your entire deal. You don't want to get less than a week out from closing and find out that you're not going to get the loan. So please, don't make any giant purchases. Okay, now that I'm done with that tangent, let's go back and talk about what happens after your appraisal. You've got past the appraisal, you've gotten through underwriting. What's the last couple steps? Well, a few days out from closing, your realtor is going to schedule the final walkthrough of the home. This is your last chance to really walk through the house and make sure everything is the way you need it before you move in, especially any specific repairs that you had negotiated with a seller, you're going to want to make sure that they were done to your satisfaction prior to closing on the home. After that, it's as simple as going and signing your closing documents, having escrow release the file to get recorded with the county once they've received the funds from the lender, and then going and getting the keys from your buyer's broker and taking all the great photos out in front of the house. Now, that was a really quick overview of the home buying process. Obviously, there are lots of other potential things that can happen during purchasing a home and a lot of other considerations you need to make. In fact, if you really want a more in-depth look at what the home buying process looks like, especially now in the spring of 2020, go ahead and click the link that I have down below to download my free PDF guide for things to consider when buying a home in the spring of 2020. If you like this video, please feel free to check out this next video about why it's so great to live here in Bothell, Washington. Also, if you like my channel and you like the content that I have here, please consider subscribing and click that little bell right next to the subscribe button so that you're notified every time I post a new video. I hope you found all these tips helpful, and I'll see you next time on my channel. Bye.